You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Mad Men After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Mad Men After Show.
No, not this week, apparently.
Okay.
Mad Men.
Boom. Bing, it's for doing. What's that move, Joe? Bing is for
that right
doing.
there?
We're not doing what Joe Sanfelippo's doing.
Oh, that's
Prepare me
neat.
some awkward dance. Kidding. We are doing the Mad Men After Show. I'm Joe Braswell, giving my good friend Joe Sanfelippo a hard time. Hi, Joe.
What's up, Joe Braz?
and to his
I
right,
look good when I dance.
You
I'm not
do.
going to take any
You do
garbage
look
off
good.
you.
He has grace. He has a certain grace.
Look
to
at
him.
that. Look at that. Look at
How you
this
gonna argue with? Oh, look at that move. Look at that.
All right. And to his right is the lovely Katherine Tulich.
Thank you. Hi. Hi, boys.
And to her right is my main man, Matt Lieberman.
Hey everybody, good to be back. This was a big episode, and I think one of the main themes was parenthood. You know, fathers and sons, but also mothers as well. And I just want to talk real quick about proflowers.com. You know, Bobby Draper at the top of this episode, he's peeling the wallpaper off the walls. His
Destructive.
Mom, his mom was
Good.
crazy upset at him. You know, I feel like everybody when they're young, they do these things that enrage our mothers, and you know, maybe you want to make up for it. Well, proflowers.com is running a special offer.
Tell
for
us about the
Mother's Day.
special. What's the
I'm
special?
going to tell you right now.
I want to hear about it.
I know I'm going to get this from my mom because I know I have some things to make up for. But proflowers.com right now, you can get 1 dozen rainbow roses for just $19.99. Or
Wait, I've done worse than that. So
Joe.
what's the upsell on that? What's
the upsell is you
Because
could
that's not going to cut it for what I did.
Joe, hold.
Tell me.
You could double the roses and get chocolates and get a premium pink vase for only $29.98. That's $9.99 more for double plus chocolates plus a beautiful vase. All you need is the code AFTERBUZZ when you check out to get these special prices. It's a really terrific offer and a great bouquet of roses. Proflowers.com, if you guys aren't aware, has the highest customer satisfaction rating of any online flower retailer.
And I've used ProFlowers quite a bit, and it's a great service.
It's a great
I'm not just saying
service.
that.
Joe uses ProFlowers not just for his mother. Joe screws up a lot.
Yeah,
so
he uses it on the weekly.
I've got some problems, but they're
he's
not,
getting carpal tunnel from ordering flowers.
Yeah.
at this
these
point.
aren't amateur flowers, by the way.
No. These are good flowers. These are pro.
These are pro flowers.
It's Pro Flowers
It's right there in the name.
because it's professionally
This is
arranged.
for amateurs.
But we should talk about this episode.
Absolutely. Let's get into this episode. This is a really great episode. Kind of the episode that, in a lot of ways, that we've been waiting for in terms of really hitting some social issues head on. The social issue of the year, maybe of that tumultuous decade, with dealing with the assassination of Martin Luther King. But yeah, it was a great episode. I mean, we saw a lot here. We saw what seemed to be another day at the office. And then we saw everyone getting ready for the
Andy Awards.
The Andy Awards,
Which
seem to be,
is real.
Which is
Which
a
are
real
real.
event, the 4th annual Andy Awards they were going to.
And where are we at now on the Andy Awards?
The 49th annual Andy Awards.
They're still going strong.
Yes.
Yeah. So April 4th is the day. April 4th, Sunday morning was the day that unfortunately that Martin Luther King was assassinated, and that was the same day of the Andy Awards back then. And we got to see the reaction of everyone, all the characters that we know. And I gotta say I was a little surprised to see the reaction I did from everyone. I think I expected different reactions from different characters. I thought, especially Pete, we'll get that in a second, but it was really kind of interesting to see how their steady, straight world was rocked by something.
I think I think that to me is what struck me the most about setting it at that cocktail party, at that awards party. You know, you never know what that day is going to be that's going to literally change everything.
Yeah.
And all that innocence is gone. And you know, it's like September 11th, December 7th, days that change the entire face of how we view ourselves, how we view how we view how we're viewed around the world, and the whole trajectory of our herd, so to speak. These are seminal moments, and I love that the way they set that in a moment where everybody's doing an awards party, that they're all kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, we all have
we're
to be
sitting
here.
at the back. You know, what's
Yeah.
the point?
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. It really shines such a light on just, you don't know what that day is going to be when everything's going to change.
It was really interesting because Paul Newman at that moment in that party, who was so far away, no one could
Excuse
see
me
him.
though, but I have to.
Yeah,
I was gonna
please,
say something,
please, Catherine.
I was going to say something else, but before
No.
that whole Paul Newman thing, I didn't get. I mean, it was meant to be Paul Newman, the actor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I know they kept him in a long shot, so obviously, but he didn't even sound like Paul Newman.
No.
It really. Sorry, but that kind of bugged me. It was like, this guy's got nothing to do with Paul Newman. Why did they even say it had to be Paul Newman?
It was Paul Newman.
The guy didn't even try and do the voice of Paul Newman.
Right.
So anyway,
Well,
that was
no,
just a
no,
little aside that
sure.
kind of annoyed me because they're usually so accurate with everything in
Well, I
this
thought it was
show.
interesting how
Yeah.
there was obviously there's no big screens back
Yeah.
then. There's no anything, so he's far away. And you're kind
Yeah.
of bored, and he's kind of getting a little bit of politics, and you can see the room.
Yeah,
sort
he
of
had an agenda.
And he
Yeah.
didn't. Paul Newman didn't support Kennedy back then.
No.
That kind of shocked me.
He's a friend. He mentioned that Bobby Kennedy's a friend. but
I
he
know
wasn't
him,
for
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know him, but you know.
But I'm not voting for him.
But it
Yeah.
was very interesting how he kind of got into politics, and everyone kind of glazed over, like, oh, here we go,
Yeah.
politics. And then when the news hit, you know, it was elected. The room just completely.
And then also, you know, I mean, just obviously in our day of social media, how we find out about things so quickly, and they were sort of like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And then you know, the lineup for the phones, and it was kind of interesting to see.
Right.
We get so used to dealing it in a different way now, and
Yeah.
I found that quite fascinating.
Yeah.
The way news doesn't travel as fast back then, and how they dealt with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
phoning your family to find out what's going on, and
Yeah.
phoning your family to make sure that everyone was safe. I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really had shone a light on all the different characters and how their situations have changed since, you know, back in season 3 when Kennedy was assassinated. Was it season 3 or season?
That's season 3. Might have been.
Yeah, I think it was season 3.
Yeah,
it was season 3 when Kennedy was
Beginning of
assassinated,
season 3.
and how their lives have changed since. Like Mad Men, you know, maybe once a season we get one of these big cultural upheaval episodes, and now that we're in the late 60s, we're probably going to get more than
Oh,
one
we got
this
one
year.
more coming with Bobby.
With
That's
Bobby,
not,
yeah.
that's right around the
It's
corner.
not far off.
1968. We
Not
got
far
more
off,
than
few
one
months.
more. We've
Yeah.
got
Just a few months, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. But this was definitely one of Mad Men's stronger episodes, and I think, you know, looking back, we're going to say this is easily one of the top
Oh, yeah.
20, if not top 10
I felt
episodes.
in some ways though that this was far more had much more of an impact than
Yeah.
the Kennedy one, because I think they, especially with someone like Don, we'll probably talk about later, but it's kind of more paralleling how they're feeling about life, and they're, you know, I think they were at a different space
Yes.
when Kennedy, even though it was tragic and all that. But I feel like this has kind of hit home in many ways more because it's all about the bigger picture, and they're relating now. It's not only internally
Yeah.
theirs, but externally they're feeling
About
it as
the
well.
atmosphere.
Was it Ginsburg that said they had to do it? It was Ginsburg
Yeah.
that said that, right?
Right.
They had to do it.
I think that speaks volumes for the point of view of so many people, and I think, you know, we have it today too. It just there's a sense that if someone's trying to buck the trend so completely and so well, you know, so carefully, and not, it's not blunt, it's not childish. It was a carefully well thought out challenge to the system. There seems to be an accepted on some level, we all accept, whether we are conscious of it or not, that is a threat, and it will probably be dealt with violently. And Ginsburg, I think, you know, but there's that hope. I think that's what I think Martin Luther King's assassination and Bobby Kennedy's assassination is screamed at, to me anyway. There's a hope that they won't do it.
Yeah.
Like there's a recognition that they probably will, but there's a hope that they won't. And when it happens, it almost breaks your heart because you're hoping that we're going to be better than that.
We
but
saw
we're not.
plenty of hearts break tonight.
Sure. Well, but just one thing, just on that time. I mean, this is a time where in the 60s, where people being assassinated was, in that decade, there were a lot of high-profile assassinations in that decade.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing that you wouldn't even. I mean, that just even now you can't think to a last time where there was like a giant assassination attempt on that level. And so, and
It's a
the
little
60s,
bit like terrorism is now.
Yeah,
we kind of
it's
half
really-
expect it.
It's really, but you had a good point, which when you're saying, Catherine, about how this moment sort of was held up a mirror to each individual characters as opposed to what they were going through at that moment, socially and morally and intellectually, and it was kind of cool to go around the show and see everyone's different reactions. And one of my favorites though was Roger's, which was such a Roger reaction. It was very brief, and he said that moment with Don where it was like, he was a good talker. I thought that'd save him.
Yeah.
That was so apolitically cool, you know.
But
Roger Sterling.
It speaks to what I was just talking about, though, like the expectation
People are
that they're going to
burned
kill.
out. Yeah. Well, also they're just kind of burned out on assassination. Like it was not so shocking that he could produce more of a reaction than that. And I was just thinking about the last time we had any kind of high-profile assassination in America, or at least assassination attempt. It was Gabby Giffords in Arizona.
Well, that was a shooting, not an assassination.
Well, you know,
still,
we've found different ways to do it now. I mean, make no mistake, we still have the politics have not changed. The methods have changed. We don't need to assassinate people anymore. We'll assassinate you online. We'll make you seem silly and goofy.
Assassination.
Absolutely.
Let me just I do want to talk just briefly about just before we get into our individual takes, the characters, how they react. And I think that what I loved about this episode is it dealt with not only race, but just it dealt with dealt with a very complex issue, because this is not sort of a, no pun intended, black and white issue in terms of how you felt about it. Like, and I think that scene between Harry and Pete was a perfect example of that. I don't think Pete is. I mean, I think Harry Crane is a racist, or I think
didn't Harry date a black girl for a long time?
I mean, Harry is a, but so it wasn't really about like him being a racist in that moment. He was just being he was being an ad man, you know, and so that was very interesting to see, like, but just the complexities of each character and how they dealt with it. But most importantly is I really liked the way they showed the two secretaries. They showed Dawn and the Peggy secretary, whose name I don't know.
No, I looked for it online. No one has posted this.
But it was a really interesting juxtaposition, because you know, we had a situation where she came in, Peggy's secretary, obviously visibly upset, went to Newark, like really needed a hug,
accepted the hug.
Yeah, but they needed it badly, and Peggy was like, you know, reluctantly, Peggy like and gave the hug,
and we were all like, hug her.
You yelled it, and they obeyed. Right. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But, so that was a really nice, touching scene, juxtaposed against Dawn, who has a very different emotional reaction to it. I mean, she's dealing with it in her way, and was like, I need to be here at work. I don't want to deal. And everyone's kind of, you know, all black folks kind of aren't the same. So it's kind of this whole thing of like, well, we know how you're feeling, and you know,
Joan was
Joan
so
trying to give her the
awkward.
hug,
right?
And
That
she's like,
was
I don't
so
need a hug.
awkward.
I'm cool. I'm not, you know.
The side hug.
But that was a perfect example of just the complexities of just sort of like, you know, individuals, whether it be it race or anything else. I thought that was just really.
But also, sorry, just one more difference. It's just that Peggy called after her secretary and tried to find out where she was and everything was okay.
They tried to.
And Don did not.
No, he did.
He did?
He did. And he said he couldn't get a hold of her, and they tried.
No, he said Joan couldn't get a hold of her.
Oh,
Don didn't pick up.
Don didn't.
Don was busy trying to call Washington.
He was trying to figure out what happened to his mistress. Okay, so
but you know, he had people on it.
So Joan was looking.
Don's busy.
I kind of felt like that was very carefully thought out to represent, you know, two very different schools of thought, or you know, larger reactions, more of a larger group reaction. But it just seemed like she wasn't prepared to accept the empathy. I'm talking about Dawn, you know, Dawn in particular.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that. I don't know whether to take that personally or whether to take that as a symbol to represent a larger chunk of folks. You know what I mean?
You personally take it personally?
No, not. I'm saying I'm taking Dawn's reaction as a personal character deal, or expanding it into to represent more of a chunk of black folks.
Sure, that's what this was. I mean, this is obviously these aren't real individuals. I think.
Well, yeah, but you understand what I'm saying.
Well, I think all these people were dealing with archetypes, right? So even the two secretaries are an archetype of different black folks, as was the guy in the movie theater,
and the guys flipping flipping burgers in the cafe.
As is Henry, who had his thoughts, and Betty had her sort of version of it, and Megan and Don, and
it was
saw everyone dealing with it in their own way.
It was a great way to reveal character.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also like the way that other sort of philosophies were brought in. You know, we had the Marxist comment from Megan's father. You know, basically it's the end of the world kind of thing.
Right.
And you know, from her father, and then which I wasn't familiar with, but Tecumseh,
Yes.
Sure.
which is an
And a Native American leader.
yeah, I mean, so it was interesting that other thought, and of course, Planet of the Apes was written by a French author as well.
Right.
And I mean, it was obviously, I loved that whole. I mean, we might talk more about Planet of the Apes, but that whole bringing that in of sort of the end of the world and humankind is ending, and all these different philosophies that were brought in tonight, which I found fascinating. I loved
theories.
that.
Yeah, and Abe
yeah.
definitely had some things to say. And
Yeah.
I'll talk about him a little later on.
This
Yeah.
isn't. Well, what they say? This is an opportunity. The heavens are telling us to change, right? Isn't that what? Whose quote was that? I wrote it down, and I was supposed to remember.
No, that was the
with
guy
the
who was on
insurance
acid.
guy.
The insurance
That was
guy.
the insurance guy's
Yes.
quote,
Clearly
right?
on-
That
Yeah,
creepy,
that was
creepy
the guy.
scene.
Who's that actor from Lost?
He
was
played
fantastic.
Ethan Rom
He's
on
the-
Lost.
Yes, he
His
was.
May,
Wow. I felt like he came straight from Lost into this.
But did you see?
Chris Mapother.
Maypother, yes.
Yes.
Did you
which
see?
is Tom Cruise's
Brother-in-law
Brother-in-law,
somehow, yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Did you see
No.
Did you see Don Draper's face though when he said that?
Yeah,
related.
he was so disgusted.
But when he said but the last thing he said was, "This is an opportunity for the heavens are telling us to change." Don's face kind of it had a change. It had like a moment of like almost like it sank in for a second, and then he takes his kid to Planet of the Apes, which is all themes about change and about how shining the mirror up to us. I thought that was very
Right.
interesting.
But I don't think, but just in fairness, we'll just get into individual topics right now. But just in fairness to Don, no one knew what Planet of the Apes was about until like it wasn't like they went in knowing like
No.
this is
Oh,
a
the
movie
book
about-
was out though by then.
Right.
I mean, it was based on a book, so if you'd read the book, you would have known what Planet of the Apes was. But if you'd never seen the movie, yes.
that ending was so shocking.
Yeah,
at
and
the
I remember
time.
the first time I
Yeah.
saw it, and I was like, you just had no idea
I
it was
love
going to
I
end like
love the whole
that.
theater was just silent. Like what the.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll let's get into some individual topics and some individual plot points. But before we do, I want to thank all of you folks for listening to us on iTunes, consistently keeping us in the top 5, right around the top 5. We love all of your comments. Mad Men, like we do the show, we watch it, we do the show immediately, so we're gonna miss a lot of stuff. And there's lots to talk about. Mad Men's a very show that could be interpreted in many ways. We're doing the best that we can, but we love your comments. We love to hear from you on iTunes and continue to listen and download. And also, as we talked about last week, you can now stream us on all of your devices, your iPads and your iPhones and even your Android devices. You can stream us live there as well. So continue to listen, and thank you very much for all your comments.
When something good happens to me, it also happens to you.
That's right.
That's right,
damn
Pete.
it. That's right. So let's jump into so Flippo. Like let's I want to talk about. Like I want you to talk about Don. Well, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but let's talk about Don and the kids and.
That monologue was incredibly
That was
Yeah.
amazing.
Wrenching.
dark.
Wrenching.
You Megan, how did she say it? She said, "My father hides behind his intellect, but you hide behind your bottle."
He hides behind Marx.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Marx is-
You don't have marks. You have a bottle.
Bottle,
That was the
yes.
quote, right?
Yeah.
That was so unbelievable. Like he's living in that spot, and then you find out why. Right at me, he says he doesn't feel anything. He looks at his kids. His kid is born, and he knows he's supposed to feel something, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
And so he's faking it. And I can't imagine the heartbreak that must produce in a person to look at your kids and recognize intellectually you're supposed to feel this. Everybody else says they feel this, and it must be like not being able to see color or not being able to see the sun when it's out. I mean, like we've heard that this is all there, but I can't experience it.
It's a terrifying thing. I remember when my grandfather passed, and I was 9 years old, 9 or 10, and I couldn't cry at the funeral, and it screwed me up for years. I was thinking, does this mean I don't love this person? And like that kind of holding yourself up to what things are supposed to be. Emotion is very complicated. Don had this moment with Bobby where he talked about how everyone goes to the movies when they're sad, and I think that was the moment that it changed for him.
Like he started. He said he started to feel something, and his heart exploded. Right? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
So he's expressing real emotion now. He
you
had
got
a
it.
moment with his son
Right.
watching this movie where he's actually now really feeling.
But then there's that
real
heartbreak
feelings.
because he crawls into bed with his son because his son
Yeah.
can't sleep, and this is a feeling that I understand. My older daughter has a stepdad, and you have these moments when you have another man in your kid's life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. You have these moments.
Divorced.
Yeah, where you like he crawls into bed with his son. Why can't you sleep? Let's have a father-son moment. What if Henry gets shot?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Henry.
What are we talking about Henry for?
Yeah. But
You
that's
know?
real.
That's real. And
yeah.
I
Real
know that
moments.
feeling, and that
I know it
breaks
too.
your heart.
Every time.
It breaks your heart.
Well, just back on that monologue, which was it was fantastic. I think it's
If
pretty
that
much.
doesn't win him an Emmy, I don't know what
I
will.
mean, he's been really.
Come on, it's
Goddamn
about time
Emmy.
he got one.
I mean,
Yeah.
Brian Cranston, eat your heart out.
Yes.
Jesus,
He will.
please.
He
Come
will.
on. He's got to give.
Gotta be
goddamn.
one of his years.
I
Come
mean,
on.
We're only 4 episodes in or 5 episodes in, but no, that monologue was probably easily the most revealing we've seen Don out loud reveal himself to
Absolutely.
another
To
person.
Megan.
To Megan.
I mean, he's had his moments with Peggy, and he's had his moments with as Dick Whitman back in California.
And in season 4 with Allison, what's her name? The woman he was dating back then.
The school teacher.
No. She worked at SCDP.
Oh,
the
that's
blonde
right.
woman.
The
Oh
marketing.
yes, she was.
The marketing
great.
specialist.
Yeah,
She was
yeah.
great too. But this was easily like the most revealing we've seen Don.
He was so raw. He was
raw,
so
that was-
simple.
but the
Just truth.
Yeah, truth. But then what he was saying, especially in the monologue, is echoing his whole life as Don Draper. I mean, it's really he's Dick Whitman, but he's been pretending to be this Don Draper, which is a falsity. It's like he's really not feeling anything as Don Draper in this entire life, including
Again,
with his kids.
Don as construct.
And he even opens up and says, it makes me wonder if it was because how my dad was, or
Right.
that
Yeah.
line he said
Or
was,
did my dad
"Did
feel
my
this
dad
way
feel this
too?
way?"
Yeah.
And so was I not valued also? Like if I'm not
Super deep.
valuing my kids, does that mean my dad didn't value me? And does
Yeah.
that make me question again whether or not I have value?
It's a horrifying thing.
Right.
But it's interesting how he has. I mean, we were talking last week about his relationship with Megan's kind of been. I felt very distant. And
Yeah.
and yet this is this incredible outpouring of honesty to her in this. I mean, because she does know so much about him, and I mean that's one of the reasons I think that he was attracted to her other than Betty, because Betty didn't really know the real Don at all, where he's revealed a lot more of himself to Megan.
Sure.
And I found that quite astounding tonight, this whole scene, because in the beginning he seemed so concerned more feelings for his mistress, was she okay in that? And then yet Megan was the one that he just let out everything to, which I felt quite amazing tonight.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this was real emotion, this was real to her.
Well, I-
and as she could see her reaction, I mean, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
because she felt that didn't she preface it by saying that I don't know what you're feeling, I have no
Right.
idea, and that's obviously
Right.
what their relationship's been like for the last
And good on her for
months.
challenging him,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
getting in Don
absolutely.
Draper's face, like
Yeah.
you're drunk.
Yeah.
Like I don't know who you think you are.
Right.
You're not so effing cool after all. You're
Yeah.
drunk.
I want to bring up a quick point. The way that the speech was phrased, he never said I in the entire speech.
Right.
He said you. He's talking about people in general, and he always thinks
Yes, right.
thinks of himself as just on some level just like all other people, and all other people must be feeling the same way that he does. And he's got evidence to back that up because his ads sell.
Right.
And that he's got this connection to other people, but this is not. It's his problem, and he's not accepting it as his.
Well, I wonder how much of the rest of his life is he faking too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's interesting to me. Like if you're saying, if you're able to look at yourself honestly, and I think that's a function of having a young wife. Because when you're with your first wife and you're raising 3 kids, you're in it. You're in the. You don't have time to look and examine yourselves. You just don't.
Yeah.
But when you've gotten you divorced and you've moved on to somebody else, you can really sit there and examine what was going on in your life, what was going on with you and the kids, and so you can have more honesty about yourself. Because when you're in it, you're just in it. But I think that him finding this out, the discovery that he doesn't feel this stuff, and the ability to turn around and say that, and that is juxtaposed with his son. What else is he faking? I mean, you got to wonder, is he faking everything? Is everything in his life, I mean, what is real to him?
I don't think he knows on some level. I feel like
I don't think he does.
even the real things must feel fake.
Well, I think that's what this season seems to be about. Like the season seems
crisis.
about his
His
crisis.
crisis,
It's
yeah.
like he's 40. It's like a really midlife crisis. I mean, I'm
Well, he
40,
turned
I'm
40 a few years ago.
Well, but I mean,
Yeah.
he's in his 40s, but he's definitely
Yeah.
like some of that midlife.
And they
crisis
brought that back to
situation.
remind us.
They
Yeah.
brought that back in the previous to
Yeah.
remind us, and also I think that it's really interesting also to see how he reacted to the assassination as well. I mean, there seems to be some level of like concern, some level of I care, but like maybe this is the thing that sort of breaks the dam. Maybe this is the thing that sort of opens the floodgates. I don't know, that allows him to start feeling or start to question. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say though is that back to Don, and I was surprised. Like Don, he's not, he doesn't want to pick up the kids. He's like not a great guy. It's like
Yeah.
we keep
but I
rooting for
can
Don. I know.
But I can understand it was a danger. I mean,
No,
He didn't want his kids in the danger.
No.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
talking about that in general. It was
Oh.
like the phone call was just like. I got the sense from Betty, like, again with you, Don. He's like, the kids. I get the sense he was using the riots as an excuse.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't like,
Okay.
he
She
genuinely
made a-
does not want to pick up the
And
kids.
the next morning, he's hungover. Megan's getting the kids ready.
Yeah,
They're
it's
going to
like,
go
you're
to
better at this than I am. Like, get it together, Draper.
only reason he hangs out with Bobby is because Bobby fakes an illness to hang out with Dad. I mean,
Right.
that's it.
Are you got any more of Don?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Can you want to jump into
Yeah.
what do you got there, Matt?
I want to talk about our dear friend Mr. Ginsburg, who had a plot line tonight. We had
Yeah.
a Ginsburg storyline,
Yes.
which we don't get very often, and it actually to me had a great parallel with Don's story with Bobby, with Ginsburg and his father. We have a lot of these father and son stories of. Ginsburg comes home. His father, without telling him, has set him up on a date because honestly, as we see later in the episode, we see that he feels that his son is inadequate and that
Well, it's nervous making. Your son's how old is Ginsburg? Is he in his?
He's in his late
20s, right? He's got no girlfriend. He's got no prospects.
Yep.
he's had no sex. He's
yeah.
told us.
Exactly.
He's never had sex.
He's very upfront about that.
Yeah.
I
Not
love
even
that.
once.
Yeah.
Not even once.
No. And he considers him a failure, and he
Yeah.
rubs his face in it. And like to me, Don's speech, you connect that back to Ginsburg's father. Does he really love him? Is this coming from a place of concern, or does he feel that his son just isn't the legacy that he had intended?
I think it comes from concern. I think we could call the subplot the clumsy Yenta. I mean, that could be the
Yeah.
name of the subplot. But
a Yenta is a
And
woman.
what was the thing?
well, yes, but a matchmaker woman.
Yeah.
What was the term you
The
said
Yiddish
was
word.
the old people?
I
love that.
The Altakakas.
I've never
Alt-
heard
yeah.
that.
What are they called? What does it mean?
Altakakas are
Altakakas, I love
old
that.
people in Yiddish, and that whole date scene between him and Beverly Farber, who
That was
I
awesome.
hope we see again.
She was
was
fantastic.
Lovely,
She was-
Beverly.
She was delightful.
That-
All I could think to myself is Ginsburg. What are you doing? Get it, go. Good.
No, it was pure Ginsburg. It didn't betray who he was, which is this nebbishy guy who's really
But Dad pulled it down. I mean,
Right.
that he didn't bring home some sort of ugly, unpleasant. He brought home a little hottie.
But
She
it's,
was nice,
it speaks
yeah.
to their relationship that he can't accept that. He can't accept it. He sees it as an affront to him because his
Right.
dad didn't tell him. He came into it unprepared.
Well, Dad knew he'd probably find a way out of it.
Right.
Sure. But, how is he supposed to enjoy this date if all he can think about is, wow, my dad thinks I am such a loser that he's not only setting up my own dates for me, he's tricking me into going on them.
I love it.
But I
Or,
do.
and he cut his balls off though because he offered him money.
Yeah.
That was rough. That
Well,
when
in front
Dad
of the
took
date.
money out of his
I
pocket,
wanna-
that was
well,
rough.
let's go ahead, Catherine.
I was just gonna say that was a beautiful scene though, where she said you're very handsome, and you could see he's just.
He's
eyes,
never
like,
but
that
you
was
could
really
see he's
sweet.
never been called handsome in his life. His dad has
No.
never called him
And
handsome.
it's funny,
Yeah,
can
sure.
I just say, when she said that, I looked at him in a different way. I thought, he is quite handsome. I suddenly saw Ginsburg. He was handsome.
Ginsburg.
Yeah.
I was
Look
going,
at you,
he's right.
Ginsburg.
Can we talk a little bit about the? I love the whole the old world, new world thing between the dad. The dad is so.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
that's-
talking about 68.
it's
so,
key.
So I mean, the dad is in his 60s in 68. So he is old world. He's really old
Yeah.
world. And the true definition of old world. But and Ginsburg couldn't be more of a
Of a new
prototype,
world,
new world,
political,
exactly.
forward-thinking guy. They did it. They had to do it.
And I really thought it was, when he first saw him with the setup and he's sort of embarrassing and he's got
Yeah.
the date there and he's doing the sort of the old world stuff. I thought, oh no! But then towards the end, when he's saying these poignant things, even when he said about Noah's Ark, like even Noah, they went 2 by 2. It's important.
Well, you want to
I'm
go
like,
with your dad?
Yeah, but you know what? I thought that was really poignant. I'm like, these old world guys, God damn it.
See,
Well,
They know what they're talking
No,
about.
there's a lot of energy spent on figuring out what it is, but sometimes it is just find somebody and make some kids.
As the only Jewish man on the panel, I would like to speak to the
If
nature
you
of
think
Jewish
you
families.
know something about Jews because you're Jewish, Whatever.
Okay, you pipe down, Flippo. Okay, no, let me tell you what's going on here. Like there is an extraordinary amount of pressure in a Jewish family to protect tradition. To
Wait, what? Are you telling me that there is pressure in Jewish culture to marry a Jewish girl and to stay in the culture?
I
and
know
to
it's
get out of
shocking.
here? You're kidding.
Guys, just let me speak.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but like, you know, in post Holocaust culture, it becomes that much more important. So, you know, no matter how successful his son is, you know, it's a field that he doesn't necessarily understand and definitely doesn't respect. He knows it's enough of a status symbol that he uses it to bring this girl over.
Absolutely.
But, you know, they're never going to be able to meet on any kind of, you know, level of respect. It's always going to be a fight to the bitter end between the two of them.
Between father and son.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah, the more
I just
you
saw
know.
that rainbow.
Yeah.
There it is.
Beautiful.
But you're right. But you can't discount the fact that
Yeah.
you're post-Holocaust and you're dealing with we gotta make some more Jews. I
Yeah.
mean that is I know it
There's
sounds
a
terrible to
huge
say it that
pressure.
way, but there is a huge pressure. It's
Hey, my
historically that's a tremendous. I know that sounds tacky to say it that way, but
no,
it's true.
It's true. My mom bought my brother and I J-Date accounts when I was 18.
J-Date. Oh.
J-Date accounts when I was
Right.
18, just to ensure, like, hey, this could happen.
Yeah.
This could happen.
There's Orthodox families in Israel right now, 10 and 12 kids.
She,
I mean, there's lots.
she once, my mom once told my brother and I that she would feel she had failed as a parent if we didn't marry someone who was born Jewish. You know,
Yeah.
There's an extraordinary amount of pressure, but at the same time, Ginsburg's dad's kind of right. He doesn't know how to sew. He doesn't know how to cook for himself.
That's
He's
my
standing
point.
around the apartment in his
What are you
boxers.
That's my point.
I'm sorry. I had to
I'm with
take
you.
it from the perspective of Ginsburg. Now I'm able to play. I had to play both sides.
Sure. Well, that's that. I mean, not taking it from specifically from Ginsburg's perspective, from a cultural standpoint, but just as a father son thing. And this, I thought I was with Ginsburg at the beginning. I'm like, oh my God, it's Dad. Get out of here, Dad. You're killing me. And then I was like, oh, the dad's right.
He's totally right.
Dad.
He's totally right.
Yeah.
My father's Sicilian. He's been on this kick my whole life. I've been married 10 years. He's always telling my brother and I, well, we got to get you a girl from the old country. No, I don't want a girl from the old country. What are you
I
talking about?
have a girl from the new
I
country.
married her, dude. It's a wonderful thing, you know?
Shout out to South Sanfelippo.
Right?
Good old Sal Sanfelippo.
Good old Sal Sanfelippo. But that's
He's
the
an old
deal.
world guy.
He's 83, so he's old school too. And he's like, well, that's the only way to get a good one. No, we want to import him from Italy?
Right. So, Katherine, what left out at you?
I'm going to talk about Pete, but I just wanted to mention one thing more about Meghan, because I think
sure.
we didn't mention the fact that it was kind of an aside,
Oh,
but
yeah,
she
that
won an award.
She won the Andy Award
yeah.
for her work in Beans.
yeah.
I know, and I thought that was quite interesting because, she's moved on to acting, but, she had this whole successful career which she put aside, and I think that's one of the reasons that Don sort of felt like that she abandoned him in a way.
Right.
And she came in and won this award. I mean, it's kind of put to the aside. I just found that,
Which was also great because
Yeah.
it's been the entire last couple seasons. Last season, talking about her ascent in the ad agency, like how she felt like, I'm really good at this. It's actually the thing that made her springboard into acting. It's like, I'm actually really good at this. I can be good at something.
Yeah.
I can be good at something I want to do. And she was good at it. She won a freaking
Well,
award.
Harry Hamlin, he was brought in tonight as a
Yes.
character, and he
Yeah.
said, "Your copy." He was
As,
admiring her copywriting as well.
Jim Cutler, the head,
The
of
head
CGC.
of CGC. I predict we'll see more of him.
Roger
I
Sterling.
predict so too.
Roger Sterling with bad breath is what they
Do you think Meghan might get a job? There's predictions. Maybe she'll go back to copywriting.
Oh, can you imagine a more awkward come home? How was your day? Oh, we undercut you. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, what do you got?
But Pete, I felt like, we were always, poor old Pete, we always give him a hard time, Weasel Pete, I guess we always call him. But I felt he really,
Robot,
he
Asperger's
really
Pete.
stepped up to the plate, in the face of this tragedy that happened with Martin Luther King. He really stood up as a man, and I really admired him tonight. It wasn't about being the sleazy ad man tonight that was making money. I mean, he put all that aside, and he really challenged.
Harry Crane.
Harry Crane, when he came in, and Harry was all he was concerned about was the fact that all the TV shows were being bumped and they were going to lose all this advertising. And he's going, "This is shameful. How can you possibly even think that way?"
I have to say, that was a shocker for me.
Yeah.
It was a great scene.
It was a great scene, but I always thought, Pete being Pete, emotionless, not caring, also coming from, his family, where he's come from, and I had no thought that he would have any level of empathy for what was going on at the time with Martin Luther King, and it caught me completely by surprise. So I'm glad to see it.
Pete's
Good
had
Pete.
Pete's had his carpet pulled out from under him. I mean, he's had his cake and eaten it too, and he thought he was so clever and thought he had it all figured out.
Yeah.
Sure.
And now he's had his kid taken away and
Yeah.
his home taken away, and he's getting Chinese food for one.
Yeah.
And and I think he's starting to quote unquote get it a little bit. I think he's starting
Not
to
so
understand.
sexy in the city, is it?
Yeah.
Actually.
But
Exactly.
here's the interesting thing. It really illuminates the level of change that he has undergone, since 1960. In the last, 7.5 years or so, 7 1/3 years, he would not have had that attitude in 1960 when he was still very much, the boy.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And of all the characters, I feel like we feel like he's changed the least.
Yeah.
Or it's easiest to dismiss his change, but no, he's grown up with the times.
And evolving quite a lot. And what about this moment that he had with Trudy on the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that
I
because
felt like he really wanted to reconnect with his
But she was having
family and
none of
that
it.
she
No,
wasn't
he
going
wasn't
to.
gonna
cancel
touch
She
it.
didn't care because usually, obviously, something like tragedy,
Yeah.
somehow emotions come out, brings people together, and I think he maybe felt that was going to be the moment that she would maybe forgive him or bring him, but no, she wasn't standing for it. She
Yeah.
didn't care. She didn't care.
And she
Yeah.
had that moment where, he had the very Pete moment where he's like, well, I don't want you to worry about me.
Yeah.
Which is basically like, I'm worried about,
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm fine. I got it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not worried. You're good.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Well,
Kids
I
are good.
guess if
Fine.
I got it on lock.
Yeah.
you must. Yeah. But Pete, but that, that screaming, he was a great man. I was like, wow, I love
Yeah.
that. Anyway.
Yeah,
Pete-
and then of course Robert Morse is coming in and trying to appease them all.
Yeah.
That was
Cooper was
great.
great.
Cooper.
How ineffectual was Burt Cooper? He
Yeah.
felt
Oh, yeah.
so irrelevant.
Nothing.
Yeah, but he's still great. Shake hands like
Like a
men.
man.
Men.
and erase this moment by shaking hands.
Yes.
I want to talk more about Pete though, as a device for that moment, because I really feel like there's a sense as I get older, I feel like more of a connection to all society, as a group. I know when I was in college, and I'm sure you guys too, I was very liberal. I marched against everything, and I yelled and screamed about everything.
And you drank a lot.
you?
I did lots of it.
Drank a lot.
I drank a lot of alcohol. Might have done other things.
Yeah.
But
A lot of broom closet.
so a lot of Project K. But as I get older, I feel more connected to all of this stuff, and I feel more a part of it. And I feel like Pete is set up as, again, that hope that all of us have that we're better. And there's that belief that whether or not he's gone to any Martin Luther King rallies, or whether or not he went down to Selma, or whether or not he got on a bus and did anything, you feel a part of a society that's moving in a certain direction, and you feel a certain pride in that. And when that is taken away and ripped away, like when Prop 8 passed in California, there was a sense, for me anyway, I was like, God damn, we're better than this. How did that just happen here? We're not this. And I feel like that was Pete's purpose in this, that you've made Pete all these people who, without participating in MLK's movement, without participating in it, feel a pride that it's happening.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Oh, 100%.
And I think, well, again, it's great that they're able to show the diversity in people's opinions without making it so, so cliche. Like there wasn't the racist and there wasn't the super liberal. It was kind of like a very subtle change. Like again, the Harry Crane and Pete argument was very subtle.
Yeah.
Even way out in the suburbs, even talking about Henry, and even with Henry and Betty, I mean, who were sort of disconnected from the whole thing. And even though Henry's a politician, and he kind of talked about the mayor going to Hollywood, going through Harlem and smiling, there was not a real level of Martin Luther King was a bad guy. It was just a lot of like.
Well, Henry just had to deal with the fallout. Whatever his
Yeah.
deal, they just
Yeah.
had to deal with it. Because those riots, they just had to figure out how to keep the proverbial shit in the horse. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Do you want-
No, I just wanted to say I thought it was significant that the word racist was even used. That word didn't exist when the show started. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
No, that's true.
Well,
It's a shift.
I wanted to talk. Is there anything else on Pete? Did you
No,
have?
no, that's
Okay.
fine.
I wanted to talk about. Okay, I'll jump in there. But I want to talk about Pete, Peggy, and Abe. I'm talking a little bit about Peggy, and also we touch a little more on Harry,
Henry.
I'm sorry, Henry and Betty as well. But just Peggy, the opening scene of this was great because it was Peggy staring off in that she was in the Don Draper position, which is that pondering out the window.
That
and
is the Don
slow
Draper, that's
push
true.
in. Like that's.
But with a smile on her face.
Right, but before we revealed it was Peggy,
Yeah.
that I think it was a pull out. I think it was a slow pull up.
Windows are a big
Slow
theme in the
tracking
show.
back.
Shot tracking back slowly. Is that
Yeah.
like a very Don Draper shot? I really love that. But But Peggy's moving on up to the east side.
Yeah.
We're going to be neighbors.
Deluxe apartment in the sky.
84th in New York.
East side.
For
Is it too far east?
$28,000.
Yo,
Yep.
Oh my
the
God.
east
A
side.
king's ransom, I say.
But I thought that was really cool to see Peggy in that role, and then that nice moment with the realtor when poor Abe comes in and Peggy, she's like, "Oh, what are we doing?" It's like, "I'm not buying. It's her money."
Yeah.
I'm not the decision maker.
I love that. Abe's a poor journalist. I can relate. Nothing's changed.
But it's really I'm still not seeing and Peggy's still reaching for that Don Draper status. She's reaching for the East Side. She's reaching to be next to and near Don and neighbors with Don. But it's also cool to see it sort of come back to Abe saying, "Look, I don't want to be on the East Side. I kind of want a family. I want our kids to have a more diverse environment. I don't want to be up there with the richies
On the West Side.
on the West Side in the 80s." And I thought that was kind of a cool moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think I love what they do with Peggy because she never feels forced. It never feels like she's got an agenda and then she does her stuff. It sounds to me like she's a character that does her stuff and then it turns out, okay, well, you've done all this stuff. You're kind of a feminist without being a feminist. You've been this pioneer without really trying to be a pioneer. You're the first female copywriter and all this stuff that she's been able to achieve. But it's interesting because she never feels forced. She just kind of goes into these things. Like right now, it's time to buy a house because you got to buy a house.
Yeah.
It's time to do it.
Well,
it's not like I don't get the vibe that she's like, I want to be neighbors with Don. She's like, okay, well, I want to buy a place. Here's the amount of money I
place
have.
that I deserve.
Right. I've got this spot. Where do I go?
Well, what's also interesting about Peggy is for all the talk of like Pete being this robot and Pete being this thing, I don't picture Peggy being this like emotionless sort of like robotic person, but really she's having a hard time expressing her emotions and have a hard time really dealing with because she's got her own secrets. She's got a baby.
Yeah.
She's got Pete's baby, for crying out loud.
Who's raising that? Is it mom raising that baby?
Yeah, she's got her own sort of
No,
secrets.
wasn't it adopted out?
No,
Was it
it was
adopted?
given away for adoption.
Yeah,
We'll never
adopted
see
out.
that
Right,
baby.
that's right.
Yeah, but she's got a lot of like her own Dick Whitman sort of thing happening there. But so we see it, with her copywriters, her not able to connect with them. We saw it with her secretary not able to connect. We see it a little bit with poor Abe, and Abe's out there like he's out there in the shit, going up to Harlem and really doing it and really embracing the social change. And Peggy's feeling a little awkward. She's feeling a little Pete Campbellish right now, which is sort of strange to me.
I love Abe and Peggy's relationship is so very complex, because she supports him.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
She
She's
supports
like,
him,
it's
and
amazing
yet,
then.
he
And he accepts it.
he accepts it,
Which for the 60s is pretty extraordinary,
pretty
right?
extraordinary.
Right.
But at the same time, like granted, he had to be there, when these riots were happening. But you could see the disappointment on her face when he left the Andes, which she was nominated for. And then I love that scene between the two of them in the apartment where she finally is like, okay, why can't you be upset that we lost this apartment? This was supposed to be our future. And she probes him and finally gets him to admit his feelings on the matter.
Right.
And then when he expresses, I want to have kids, and like the place that I saw us having kids was not that place. And the subtle change in her face as she realized, this guy wants to have kids with me.
Right. Because that was like almost a throwaway thing he said. He's like,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
And our kids.
He's like, whoa, kids?
Yeah.
That was kind
Which
of
this is the first time that we've seen her actually think about kids in a positive manner since since she gave up her child for adoption.
Right.
And it completely changed her tone. She's like, wow, this actually might be a thing.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I want to just really, for 1 minute, I do want to just touch on Out in the Suburbs. I want to touch on Harry and
Henry.
I keep calling him Harry. He's
get him a
Harry
name
to
tag.
me. Henry and Betty and the kids out in the suburbs. Not much of Sally this week, but looks like Henry is going to be running for state senate.
Yes.
In a Republican area, it's pretty much a give me.
Right, and looks like Betty is sort of
He's going to start sticking to the diet.
She's looking at that dress like, I can't be a senator's wife. Like
Give her a pack of cigarettes, man.
Right.
She's going to start losing some weight.
But just this is sort of like Betty's dream come true. Betty's been fighting for this sort of idealized world since season 1.
Yeah.
And we saw her kind of go away. Maybe this isn't what I wanted, and kind of go away from her. But now she's back with Henry, and looks like she's going to get it back.
Her ambition is back.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of Betty's character. And Henry's not really giving me much in terms of character. I don't really know who he is other than kind of a stuffed suit, but to see Betty sort of react in this world will be kind of cool. That's all.
No, I agree. I think it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see her be more dynamic than she's been. I think she's just kind of wasting away in the suburbs, and that kind of makes me sad.
You want Betty back.
I want Hot Betty back. I love me
Hot
some
Betty's
Hot
coming
Betty.
back. Well, let's just jump into some catches of the week. Let's jump into our boy Mike August catches of the week. I know Phil's got those over there. Mike's got plenty to say.
Super fan, Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen,
what's going to be fun is Mike in the future, he will call in and actually announce these himself.
Great.
But for today, I am reading and representing Mike August.
This is good practice.
As his attorney.
This is good. This is good practice. Between your mic.
All right. So this is last week's episode. What was it called again?
To have and to hold.
To have and to hold. That's it. So for fans who didn't know, Perry, I'm going to butcher this name. Perry Coste was a Broadway producer who was responsible for TV's first broadcast of the Grammys in 1971.
That was the guy Harry was excited about. And was that the Harry and Cosgrove moment that we're talking about there? I think that's what it was.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
He earned a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, and he went from agent to producer with the help of entertainment mogul Harry Cohn.
Very similar to Harry Crane.
The Electric Circus nightclub was located in the East Village and operated from 67 to 71. Although the popularity of that club was short-lived, it did help influence the rise of disco. The Blue Oyster Cult was among the bands that performed there before becoming famous as well.
I don't know whether or not we should thank the
It
electric
sounds like
I'm not sure.
But it sounds like Phil Svitek does not know who the Blue Oyster Cult is.
I need more. I need more cowbell.
Blue Oyster Cult.
Blue Oyster Cult.
I say everything I read is at one level.
But have
We
you
stay
heard of
monotone.
Blue Oyster Cult?
I refuse to comment. I am just representing Mike August.
I heard their Ryan Hardy's. I'm sorry, I'm a following joke. Never mind.
Don't fear the panel. Don't
All I
fear
can
the
ever
panel,
say
Phil
is
Svitek.
all I can ever think of with Blue Oyster Cult is I need more cowbell.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's all. That's all I can ever think of.
Well, in Peggy's presentation of Ketchup vs. Catsup, Mike felt that there was a comparison between Don and Pete, that there's only one Don, Draper.
That's right.
I thought, in terms of
I'll take
subtext,
it.
I could see that.
I can see that.
I could see it.
And last catch of the week, that elevator that is taking Don to heaven with Sylvia will be the same elevator that will take him to hell when he gets caught by Dr. Rosen.
Oh,
So interesting. And I didn't catch tonight's episode, but I did catch the sirens at the end with Don, and I thought, the cops are coming, Don. You're being caught.
That's right. He's
I just want to point out just one thing. The closing song was "Love Is Blue" by Paul Marriott, and the lyrics. It's a song about loss. It's a song about a lost love. Blue, blue, my world is blue. Blue is my world now that I'm without you. So obviously, mourning MLK, and also kind of mourning. A level of innocence that was lost.
French again. I like that. We had the
Yeah.
French language. We had part of the episode was written by French man. Love is Blues. I'm sorry. I don't know if there's a French theme, but a couple of things came
It's
in that
Mad
were French.
Men. All the themes are real.
Yes, it's all. Nothing's coincidental.
sadly, Matt, no Benson this episode.
No, the Benson watch is he's off somewhere recharging because he's obviously a robot or something.
He's ready to.
He's ready to pounce. He's gonna come back in a big way next week. I can feel it. I know we didn't see him show up in the scenes from the next episode, but
we do have a teeny tiny bit of news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Well, unless you haven't got a television these days, you're probably seeing the Mad Men crew everywhere. Because, John Hamm was doing late night, Jessica Paré was doing late night. They're all on Katie tomorrow. So they're obviously doing a big media launch, media drive in New York. And also part of that was the Paley Center, who does these fantastic, things here as well, where they get the cast in and that. So they had a panel with the cast and Matthew Weiner. And just revealing some things like, and they had Brian Williams actually asking questions, which was pretty incredible. Would have loved to have been there.
Yeah.
And so Brian brought up the big thing that was the buzz this week, that how they got a fact wrong in last week's episode that Joan basically talked about reservations to Le Cirque. It's 1968, and immediately it was picked up by a lot of the food websites I noticed originally, but that basically Le Cirque did not open until 1974.
Come on, folks.
Whoa.
That's a big gap.
And then Matthew Weiner, I hope he was joking. I hope he was joking, but apparently threw back that it was actually Joan ad-libbing that line. So he was trying to put it back on Christina Hendricks. That's not nice.
No. Lies.
That was, I'm sure those actors do not ever change a line in his script. So that was a bit naughty. But the other thing I love that Vincent Carthy, who's obviously plays Pete Campbell, and it's his birthday next Sunday. So remember that, because it's also my birthday, May 5. We share a birthday.
Cinco de Mayo.
So, but he was talking about, he's
Margaritas in the cups next week, right?
Yeah.
he was talking about the fact that that Pete is not very good at having affairs. Basically, he said he's not as good as cheating close to home as Don Draper is. He didn't, he was talking about the reaction, from his last one, and he said Pete Campbell gets it where he can get it because he's not too picky. So he's kind of grateful. He doesn't have the same pull as Don Draper, so he's grateful basically when he gets any attention. So he basically talked about that. And Matthew Weiner was saying, I don't know if we'll hear this, but he said he feels like the song that really epitomizes 1968. So I'll be listening out for that. Is "Piece of My Heart" by Janis Joplin.
Oh.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
I want you to
Yeah.
Come on, now take it.
I don't know why we said. I don't know why I
We
started
kept
that.
going. We didn't.
And also just the other little thing that's a Mad Men aside is that they were talking this week about that Mad Men writers are now planning a show about Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach. And
Really?
I Dream of Jeannie. No, it's not going to be I Dream of Jeannie, but
Not
that's
Mad Men,
the
but
astronauts.
Spacemen?
Spacemen.
Assman for astronauts? I don't know.
Nope.
Assman.
Keep moving, Brad.
Come on. I got titles. They gotta hire me on the show.
They're gonna bring you on right now.
I'm ready to. Looks like it's time for
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
one time. Joe Sanfelippo, help me out.
All right. Here is my prediction. I predict that we did not bring Harry Hamlin onto the show for a little 2-second scene at the
A
Andy
two-line
Awards.
co-star.
I don't believe that
No?
happened. I don't think that Harry Hamlin would do an under 5 unless there was an arc to it. So
Is Harry Hamlin? I mean, shout out to Harry Hamlin. He's a great guy, but is he working a lot? I mean, that's a good stuff.
does he need an under 5? Really?
Yeah.
There's your
When's
$536.
the last time you saw
I don't
Harry
think-
Hamlin?
All I'm saying, I think that Harry Hamlin is going to be coming out and causing some problems for some folks. I think that he's going to be making some offers to some people, and I think that it's going to cause a ruckus.
Okay.
That is my prediction.
Ruckus predicted.
Well, I
Catherine?
have this weird prediction because going on with that, of the way Meghan kind of came back in with the advertising and winning an award, I'm just wondering whether she would consider leaving acting and Harry will offer her a job. I don't know. It's a crazy
Can
prediction.
you imagine a bigger mess?
Crazy prediction, but that's going to be mine.
Okay. I think we're gonna see more development on the Don and Sylvia front. At the top of the episode, we had that clip where she says, "Be careful, we can't fall in love," and then he was so concerned about her during all the riots. We're gonna see some development there, and I think we haven't seen the end of Peggy's rise at Cutler, Gleason, and Shaw.
Well, I do agree that Peggy's rise is going to continue, but I don't think it'll be at Cutler, Gleason, and Shaw. I think it'll be Sterling Cooper, Draper, Olsen.
Oh, I like that.
Or maybe even Sterling Crane. So we'll see this. We'll keep the C.
Yeah.
That's all we got. We didn't get a chance to mention our boy Don's son, the reaction to
Bobby.
Little Bobby's reaction to the end of Planet of the Apes when she explained it to him. He was like, Jesus. Like his mind was like,
I loved it.
It was awesome. Anyway, thanks, Joe Flippo. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Joe Flippo, and you can find me here at AfterBuzz. I do the Americans. I do with Joe Braz, and I also do the following with Joe Braz, and we do Bates Motel.
Yep.
And of course the
You are busy.
I know, we don't sleep, and we do the Mad Men.
You do all the good shows.
Yeah.
Catherine, where can we find you?
At Katherine Tulich, KATHERINETULICH. I also do Revenge, but I will be in London next week tweeting about Star Trek because I'll be there for I'll be doing interviews with Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're following you.
Follow me and I'll tell you all about Star Trek. Yeah.
your birthday.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MattLieberman. You can also find me on AfterBuzz on Defiance and Doctor Who. I too will not be on the next episode because I do.
Are you
live...
in London as well?
No, I do live sketch comedy at the IO West Theater on Hollywood Boulevard the first Sunday of every month at 7:30 as a member of DJ Fawcett. 6366 Hollywood Boulevard. The show is $5.
Whoa.
Yes. And you can find me on Twitter at Joe K. Braswell. You can also find me at grantline.com and here for the season finale of The Following next week, and the season finale of The Americans as well with Joe Flippo, and also Bates Motel, which is not in the season finale. But looks like it'll be me and you here by ourselves drinking margaritas, Joe Flippo.
And so happy birthday. It's my birthday, so please say happy birthday to me and to Pete Campbell.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
I haven't got a replacement.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
AfterBuzz TV.